Willie, welcome back to your native Dublin. You're here to receive a special recognition award from the Irish Tourism Industry Confederation. Congratulations. You're now, of course, CEO of IAG, one of the world's leading airline groups. That's a long way from where you started, a 17-year-old cadet pilot with Aer Lingus.
Well, it's always great to be in Ireland and to be in Dublin especially, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my time in the industry. I started nearly 40 years ago. Never expected to be where I am. I think I've been probably one of the luckiest people around, to start as a trainee pilot in Aer Lingus, something I could never have afforded to do on my own, so if it wasn't for Aer Lingus providing the sponsorship, I would never have been able to qualify as a pilot, and then moving on through the ranks and then into management.
Yeah. So on day one there was no plans or aspirations in that regard?
I have to be honest, because people often say, it was the airline in your blood, and I always enjoyed technical things, and I think that's what got me interested in aviation, was the technical side of it. But I was just fortunate that at the time I was doing my leaving cert, Aer Lingus were looking for cadet pilots, and I applied like lots of people and managed to somehow convince them as I went through the process that they should invest in me, and they did. And I spent 25 years in Aer Lingus. Loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
There were tough times, and like everybody who was in Aer Lingus, we did go through a lot of pain at times. But when I look back on it, I just remember the good times. And I think it's great to see Aer Lingus flourish the way it is today.
Absolutely, because of course Aer Lingus in the 1980s and 1990s is a very different animal to what it is today. You became CEO eventually in Aer Lingus, and I suppose you started pretty much after 9/11, so that must have been a very difficult time.
Yeah, that period after the terrible events of 9/11 was really, really tough. And Aer Lingus, most people will remember, very difficult position because of our dependence on the transatlantic business. And you think back what happened after 9/11, people stopped flying, Americans in particular.
Yes,
so we went through an awful time when our flights were aircraft flying across the Atlantic with 70% of the seats empty. And you can't run a business that way, so we had to radically change, and it limited the options that were available to us, but maybe that helped because we were forced in terms of the time available, and we were forced in terms of the options available to us, and I think that provided us with a framework that gave great clarity to everybody around what we needed to do.
Yeah, you've often said that having Ryanair on your doorstep, if you like, helped Aer Lingus. It forced Aer Lingus to be more competitive. Is that something you still maintain?
Yeah, without question. Like, Ireland is very fortunate to have two great airlines based here, Ryanair and Aer Lingus, and I think the competition between the two has been very helpful. And when you face a competitor like Ryanair on a daily basis, it does force you to do things to ensure that you're relevant to your customers, because in you go back to the 70s, people didn't really have a choice. It was Aer Lingus or pretty much nobody else. So when people are provided with a choice, you have to give them a product at the price that they're prepared to pay. Doesn't mean you have to be the same, and we weren't the same as Ryanair. I don't deny that we did some of the smart things that Ryanair was doing at the time, because it was the right thing to do. But we provided an option for people. But the critical thing that we realized back in 2001 was we had lost our relevance. To a lot of people, we were no longer relevant because we weren't providing the right options at the right price, and getting that clarity around the message was very helpful as well.
Yeah, and Aer Lingus now, as part of the IAG family, I think is the most profitable airline within IAG. It's seen such remarkable growth in a relatively short period of time, but 3-4 years ago, when the IAG deal came to pass, there was a lot of controversy around. It was kind of touch and go for a while. I remember it well. There was a lot of kind of talk about selling Aer Lingus and privatising Aer Lingus, and there was a lot of kind of political discussion. Can you remember that time? And what are your thoughts?
When we made the first approach for Aer Lingus, it was seen as controversial, and I think some people felt that there may be a personal element in it as well, because the history of my time in Aer Lingus and when I left Aer Lingus, I went out of my way to assure people it was a business decision. And we wanted to invest in Aer Lingus because we saw the opportunity that was there. I've been a long admirer of Stephen Cavan. I think he's great, and I knew he had a plan. But I knew his plan as a standalone Aer Lingus was incredibly risky. Aer Lingus could never have delivered on their ambition as a standalone airline, because it would have been too great a risk for a business to take, and would have made them very vulnerable. So we believed in what it is they wanted to do. I knew the business well. I knew the value of the brand. So a lot of the things that people expressed concern about, I clearly was not concerned about, because we were investing in a brand. We were investing in a business model. We were investing in an airline that was flying to Heathrow, serving Ireland, because that was something that fitted with IAG as well. So I'm pleased we persevered, and we did the deal in the end. And I'm pleased that there were people like ITIC supported us. Not everybody did, but they were a strong supporter, because I think, to be fair, I think the industry recognised the opportunity, and probably realised that that opportunity wouldn't be fully exploited unless Aer Lingus was part of a larger group.
Absolutely.
And we've delivered, and it's been delivered by the team here in Dublin.
And it's very much still an Irish airline, because we saw with the rebranding a couple of weeks ago. It's still very Irish. There's an Irish management team.
Yeah. It is an Irish airline, and they're proud. And we're proud as IAG to have an Irish airline in the group, and that's the business model that we developed. We recognise the value in the brand, we recognise the importance of culture, and therefore we give the airlines a lot of autonomy. We put strong management teams in place, and we expect them to deliver, and they've done so. And Stephen Kavanagh did a fantastic job in his role as CEO. He's now passed the baton on to Sean Doyle, who will be fantastic in the role. And we'll continue to implement the plan that was developed to expand Aer Lingus on the transatlantic, to strengthen Dublin as a hub, and it's now, it is now a strong transatlantic hub, and it's going to get even stronger.
Yeah, because that strategy it's very beneficial for Irish tourism, because it's opened up so many more gateways direct from the States into directly into Dublin. But of course, then there's the network from Dublin into Europe. Yeah. So you're able to use, if you like, Dublin as a hub. Which must make a lot of those routes sustainable, and rather than being point to point.
And that's the value of a hub, because you have a strong, what we call a point to point market. So a home market in Ireland is strong, and that's important. But then you supplement that with people who can travel over the hub, and that means you get options to fly to greater number of destinations and add more frequencies, which is clearly beneficial then, particularly to business in Ireland. But the advantage for the tourism industry was opening up new gateways in the United States, and there will be more to come. So we launched 2 new destinations in North America this year, Minneapolis and Montreal, and we'll add more. So we have a plan to continue to expand the network, and we know in the industry the value of North American tourists, because they tend to spend time and spend money. So they are valuable contributors to the tourism industry, and we're very pleased to be playing our part in that, and we're very pleased to get the support of the industry.
Absolutely. And those expansion plans, obviously you intend to grow the network for Aer Lingus from the States. Can the Irish airport infrastructure keep a pace? Because obviously infrastructure is slow to sort of to move in sync with sort of the demand that airlines are generating. Where do you see the airports, and I suppose particularly Dublin Airport at the moment?
Yeah, we're committed to Dublin, Cork and Shannon, and Knock obviously, but Dublin, Cork is very important to us, Shannon is very important to us, but Dublin is the hub, and for the hub to work you have to have efficient infrastructure, and I'm pleased since Dalton Phillips has been in position. I think he gets it, he understands it, he spent time to understand our business model, to appreciate what a hub carrier needs to support the expansion plans. I think the government gets it. So you don't require expensive infrastructure, you just require efficient infrastructure. And there has been, I think, probably too much of a focus on another runway and another terminal. What we need is to exploit what we have there at the moment. And I'm pleased that we're working very well. I think the relationship between Aer Lingus and DAA is probably the strongest it's ever been. And I think I give credit to both Stephen Kavanagh when he was CEO and Dalton Phillips, and I'm sure Sean Doyle will continue to build on that relationship, so that we try to understand and appreciate one another, and then work together to exploit the opportunity.
Absolutely, because there's a lot of talk at the moment about a third terminal. I know the department and the minister, I think, is carrying out a study in regard to that. But I know from Aer Lingus and even from Ryanair and stuff that there's really more of a desire to get the infrastructure that's there at the moment more efficient.
Exactly, and they are doing that, and it requires some investment, but it's not difficult. And you know, I've said this before, for Ireland to continue to fully exploit the opportunity that tourism provides, we've got to be efficient. You know, we have got to offer value to people who will want to come here, stay here, spend money here, tell people about the great experience and want to come back again. Now, if you have expensive infrastructure, that's not going to happen. So, you know, we need to keep our eye on the ball, and that requires us to always look to, you know, do it in the most efficient way possible, to make it a pleasant experience, but to make it an experience that represents value, and that's the Aer Lingus, you know, model.
Yes,
You know, Stephen Kavanagh always talked, you know, the value airline model, and it works. And you know, Aer Lingus will continue to provide the services, and will continue to support the investment in Aer Lingus. But we do need the infrastructure at the airport, and I think we're getting there. As I said, I think there's a good understanding as to how the hub can, you know, really add value to the Irish economy.
Yes.
And that's something that a lot of countries miss. You know, they think people using the hub to transfer, that they're not contributing to the local economy. Actually, they are, because what they're doing is they're making a network available that otherwise would not be sustained based on the, you know, the home market. And you know, that's why Aer Lingus is able to, you know, continue to expand the network into North America, because they'll get the direct traffic, but they'll also get people who will be flying from Europe over Dublin into the US, and from the US over Dublin into Europe. And it's a very important model, does add significant value, and I'm pleased that people have seen that.
Yeah, and it's working very well for Irish tourism. You live in London, of course. What do you make of the political chaos over there in relation to Brexit? I mean, there's so much uncertainty. That can't be good for business.
No, uncertainty is never good for business, and you know, I think a lot of businesses have been trying to, you know, put the uncertainty to one side and just get on with things, but it's impossible to do that. And it's coming to a head now, and you've seen more and more businesses say, I'm sorry, it's now too close to the 29th of March. You know, it's unacceptable that we still don't know what it's going to be like the day after. So it's definitely unhelpful, and we're beginning to see you know, real concern being expressed by important business leaders. I still remain optimistic that, you know, it will be worked through. It's a pity, though, it's going right up to the wire. You know, it would have been nice to have seen this resolved 12 months ago, so there was, you know, an element of clarity as to what was going to happen during a transition period, and then at least some visibility around what's likely to be at the end of that transition period. We don't have that as yet, so hopefully we'll get it in the coming weeks, because we do need it.
Has business and industry been loud enough in the UK, I suppose, in the referendum itself, and since the referendum, to shout loudly that certainty is what's required for any business to succeed? Yeah,
I think some of the messages were not quite right. You do need to be careful, because, as you know, part of what built up around the time of the referendum and since then is this Project Fear. You know, if people talked about concerns about what would happen, they were dismissed as just trying to create fear. So I think businesses do need to be careful. What we tried to do as a business was to explain the potential impacts to our people, not to tell them how they should vote, and certainly not to tell, you know, people how they should vote, because on this issue especially, it's a very emotive issue. But, you know, we did try to be as open as we could in terms of what we felt this would mean for our business. I think there were businesses who took, you know, both for and against positions that really weren't that accurate, and then had to sort of maybe massage them or clarify them afterwards. So I think business is certainly clear in terms of the messages now. No business, nowhere in the world will you get businesses, you know, saying we love uncertainty. Yeah, there will always be some people who will exploit uncertainty, but most businesses like to know what the world is going to be like, you know, tomorrow, next week, so that they can make investments that they need to make with it, you know, some sense of certainty, at least around the structure that's going to apply. We don't have that today, and that's definitely putting people off making investments. And it's not just in the UK, because clearly people are worried about the economic impact of Brexit in countries outside of the UK as well.
Yeah.
I remain optimistic. I think we all have to have some sense of optimism. It would be a terrible place otherwise, but
absolutely.
But we do need to start moving to get some clarity on the situation.
Yeah, because of course one of the consequences of a no deal is the Open Skies Agreement.
Yeah,
do you see that rolling over, come what may?
I'm not concerned about that, because aviation has been has liberated Europe. Freedom of movement is one of the fundamental principles, but it's a great objective. But if you can't exploit it, well then what are you going to do? And aviation has allowed people to fully exploit the freedom of movement, which I think is one of the great successes of the EU. I'm confident that aviation will be properly addressed, and that we'll have a regime in place that will continue to allow consumers to take full advantage of the opportunities that aviation has provided them.
And coming back to Ireland, Irish tourism, we in the Irish Tourism Industry Confederation came up with a strategy recently, quite confident about the future, albeit with challenges ahead of us. What's your own view on where Irish tourism is at, and what opportunities there might be, and what things it might need to look out for?
Yeah, no, I think tourism can be optimistic. I think people learned the lesson. I think going through that crisis after 2008, 2009, and the really harsh economic downturn, I think people were much more focused in terms of what they needed to do to make themselves relevant to the tourism industry. And Ireland has some unique opportunities. It's a fantastic country to visit. We talk about the US, North America being an opportunity because there are so many people who self-identify as being Irish,
yes,
want to travel here. I meet them all the time. I meet these people who claim to be Irish. Of course, they're Irish generations ago, even longer. But they self-identify and they want to visit Ireland. But when they come here, they want to feel that they've experienced something that enriches them. And even you can talk about older generations, millennials, doesn't matter who they are. It is about experience, and you've got to give people an experience that they really appreciate. And I think we lost our way a bit, as a country. I think we became too expensive. I don't think we were offering good value. Pricing was not where it should have been.
This was where, in the noughties?
Yeah. I can remember. So I moved to London in 2005, and I came to a wedding in Ireland I think it was in 2007, and I remember going into a hotel for lunch. It was a wedding was down the country, so I stopped off to get a bite to eat. I was shocked at the price of the sandwiches, which were very, very basic in terms of quality. And you sort of look at it, and I contrast that with what I knew I could get in a pub in London or a pub in the UK, and there was just a huge difference in the price. Now, currency obviously comes into play, and we know that's an issue that we have to manage. But this just didn't represent value for money at all, and we can't afford to do that. We've got to make sure that people coming here enjoy the experience. And we're a very open, hospitable country, and we've got to make sure that continues.
Absolutely, that competitiveness and that value is more important than ever.
I think it is there. I've seen a big change. It's as an Irish person, I am a visitor when I come to Dublin, but I stay in the hotels around Dublin. I've used many of them. And I think there's been good value there in hotels. Because I stay in hotels all around the world. London hotels are expensive. New York hotels are very expensive. But it's important you don't get a reputation. So I look at Japan, for example, a regular visitor to Tokyo on business. Tokyo had this image as being a very expensive destination. It's not. It's actually it's a great place to visit, and people will get that this year with the Rugby World Cup. But if you get a reputation for being expensive and a reputation for being poor value, it doesn't matter how well you try and advertise your products, how we advertise the country, you're not going to get people to come here. Now, get the reverse. Get people
Yes.
talking about the fantastic experience, the fun they had, the brilliant scenery that they were able to see, the experience in the pubs and restaurants, the service they get in the hotels, the service they get in the shops. You get a reputation for that.
You're onto a winner.
You're onto a winner. Now you've got to keep it.
Mm.
But if you can get people talking about you in those terms, great value, great service, hospitality, smile, friendly, good quality, and as I've said, it's not 5-star quality that people need, but you can't sell 2-star quality at 4 and 5-star prices, and there was an element of that going on, back 2004, 5, 6, 7, and then of course we had to change, and we should always remember people should remember what we went through. That was a horrible period for everybody, so let's not put ourselves in a position where we get back into that, and I don't think we will. So certainly from what we see with our expansion on the transatlantic with Aer Lingus, we're able to do that because more and more people want to visit Ireland, and more people believe that this is a destination that where they can experience something that is special, that they can't get anywhere else. Now they're going to visit other countries as well, so it's a brutally competitive market, but we do have something special to offer here, and I think it's great that we are doing well.
Brilliant. Willie, thank you so much for your time.
Not at all.
And congratulations on the award you're going to receive this evening. It's well deserved.
Well, I'm really honoured. It's something. It's probably unfair. As CEO, you get the awards, and all the other people in the business do the work. But no, it's great to be here, and I'm very honoured that the industry would recognise me like this. So I'm looking forward to it tonight.
Great. Thank you, Willie.
Thank you.